Morning, everybody. It's 8:10 a.m. It is June 23rd. Welcome to my channel. Of course, big news on Saturday: U.S. struck Iran. So we wanted to see what the markets did on Sunday. Opened up, gap down, but then pretty much since recovered. So this market tends to just be in this uncertain balance area, and we can't seem to find acceptance outside of it really. So it's making the market really basically difficult to trade, like a swing trade, I guess. Day trading maybe not as difficult. It was quad witching on Friday, so that had some volatility. We did try to go up and failed, fell, and then just trended lower. And that was Friday. And this morning, like I said, we pretty much gapped down, and now we're kind of like hovering. We pulled back a little bit, but that's what's going on. So of course, the markets never seem to amaze. Over the weekend, there seems to be news every weekend that moves markets, right? Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets along supply and demand. Gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is how I find structure in the markets. Okay, that's my edge. I also use anchored VWAPs, and when the market opens, I use market internals. Okay. Now I do this every day, and hopefully you can join me. Have a cup of tea, water, coffee, whatever it is, and I'll give you the story of the markets. All right, along with the market news, economic calendar, leaders and the laggards, and then later on we go into long and short trade scenarios using the ES and the Nasdaq futures. Okay, and of course, once the market opens, like I said, I use the market internals. You can want to see my commentary live. Join my Discord, Fluence Trading. All right, go to YouTube homepage, join the link. Hope to see you in there. Ask questions and just see the market how I see them. Right? I'm a person who needs to know why, and I give you the why every day. Okay, so come join. That'd be much appreciated. I'm trying to start some community there. Okay. Now, I think we can go right into futures watch list here. See what's moving futures. I know Bitcoin has quite a drop here. Let's see. All right. Leading the pack is the VIX. We have a 21.22 VIX, up 2.91%. Crude is up 0.58. It was up more and then kind of paired losses. All right. Dollar is up. There's that dollar. There's the dollar. Remember I was saying that was bottoming out. Let's see what happens with the dollar. Up 0.56. Silver is up 0.19. 30-year bonds being bought slightly. Nasdaq is flat. ES flat. Gold's flat. The Dow is down 0.12. 10-year yield is down 0.25. The Russell is down 0.43. Bitcoin's down 2.04. I think that one actually went under 100 on the weekend. Ethereum is down 6.97%. Wow. All right. Moving on to the Mag 7 Plus. Tesla. Tesla is up 1.11%. AMD's up 0.87. That got an upgrade today, so that's been moving pretty nicely. All right. Lagging here, Broadcom down 0.80, Nvidia down 1.01, Coinbase down 1.61, following the Bitcoin. So interesting, some semis. And AMD is up with the upgrade, and then Nvidia and Broadcom are down, so that's interesting. Top sectors, is anything to do? Yeah, we just mentioned it here. You got Exxon and Chevron up 1.66 and 1.34, and you got Uber and Snowflake down at the bottom of that list. Sectors, moving on. Energy up 1.30%. Really, everything else is flat. Financials is down 0.08, and semis, there you go, down 0.27 actually now. So, should be interesting day in the markets. All right. Now we move on. And we can look at some market internals, which are pretty much weak. I'm going to briefly go over them. So I post these in my Discord pretty much every time I speak. All right. They are my bread and butter. How I look at the markets and tell me what's strong, what's weak. Now, on this particular day, you can see we opened with a little bit of strength, and then you can see the market cap, which is these bars, and the white line is equal weight. So just picture the white line is the overall market without any weighting. That's not how our market moves, but that's just if everything is equal, right? Whenever the market cap is weaker than the equal weight, that is bearish. That is bearish. And I said in my community that I was looking for a pullback to short. All right, so I did get that pullback right in here. Where did I get it? And I caught this, but then I got stopped out break even, which was frustrating because it would never hit my original stop. But that was why this right here told me, all right, tech is weak, relatively weak. So that's why I pretty much thought we would get another leg lower, which we did. But it didn't make it easy to do it. See all this chop, and then boom, finally did it. All right. So that's the market internals there. Basically how I read it. All right. Now we can go into the economic calendar here. Let's look at this week. All right. Today, Fed Waller spoke at 3 a.m. Today we have PMI at 9:45. So here's a day that I'm going to have to wait for the dust to settle. I'm going to wait for the dust to settle. Okay. And then you got existing home sales at 10 a.m. So probably around 10:05, 10:10 is probably where I'll have to look for a setup. Then Fed Bowman speaks at 10 a.m., followed by more Fed speak. All right. Tuesday, we have Fed Chair Powell. That's a big one. He speaks on Tuesday and speaks on Wednesday. Thursday, you have GDP. Looks like Fed barking, initial jobless claims, pending home sales, Fed bar speech. And Friday, you have core PCE, okay, and Michigan consumer sentiment. So this week for myself, I'm going to go on vacation, so I'm not going to be here Wednesday through Friday. So Wednesday through Friday, I will not be here. So I'll just be with you guys on Monday and Tuesday. All right. Now, as far as news goes, let's look at some of these. We know about the oil stocks getting lifted. Tesla shares edge higher after the group launches driverless taxi service for some riders. Estee Lauder shares inched higher following an upgrade by Deutsche Bank. What else here? Chinese electric car maker Li said it would introduce a new SUV later this year. All right, now moving on. All right, here we go. Tesla rolls out robo taxis in Texas test. Let's see here. Let's see. Airlines weigh Middle East cancellations after U.S. strikes Iran. Eli Lilly expects, let's see, orforglipron obesity results in third quarter. All right. Let's see here. If there's anything else newsworthy. I don't think so. Let's look at the juice here. It says U.S. equity futures wavered as investors assess whether immediate Iranian response to U.S. strikes on its nuclear sites would significantly disrupt oil flows from the Middle East. Crude prices trimmed earlier gains. All right. Just trying to see if there's anything that came out. Of course, Iran is saying that the U.S. will pay. I just read so many conflicting things over the weekend. Some people saying that this is like, oh, we already told them we were going to do this when we met with them, and they cleared it. I don't know. There's so much that I don't know. I honestly don't know what to believe. Now, also we have today, Trump meets National Security Team at 1 p.m. Okay, so you always got to keep that. Make sure we hear like the squawk, the news live, because there's always something moving our markets. Okay, always something moving our markets. All right, that wraps up kind of the news basically. We know the big news: U.S. striking Iran. So moving on, Right, now we're going to go into daily charts. There's really not much going on in the markets. I mean, there is intraday, but in the big scheme, on the daily charts, I've showed this last week, we've just been in this range. Okay? Now, we did close below the previous week's range on Friday, hitting this 20-day simple moving average, basically closing there. Okay? So that's significant because you broke and closed below the previous week's range. Okay? Where are we at now? 594, basically. We are right here. So we are below last week's. Now, let me get this straight. So just to make sure everybody understands my charts, this is the previous week, not last week, like the week it just happened, because this is Friday's close. Okay. So we are still below this as I'm speaking right now, right here, right around here. Okay. But once today goes by, this will become last week's lows. Okay, so that would mean we're inside last week's range. Just, I hope that's not too confusing. Okay, let's look at futures. Okay, let's look at futures. All right, you can just see the mess of balance that we've been in. And you can see in futures, we opened here on Sunday evening. Right there. Dipped down and then ripped up all the way up to here. Okay, 20-day simple moving average. So price is right here. So you can see in futures, it updated, right? This is last week's lows. So we're up here in futures. So just in this big balance area. That's like I'm saying. We thought you might have had something, and now look. Doesn't mean we're eventually going to move. And it's going to be a big one because we just been calling for a while. Okay. All right, let's look at the Qs. So Qs, what did they do? They closed within the previous week's range last Friday. So a little more relatively structurally stronger than the SPY. Okay. You hit that 20-day simple moving average. This is last month's highs. Right here. This white line. Okay. Where are we at now? 526.13. We're at the lows of Friday. Okay. Now futures brought us way down, right? But like just in the equity space here, we actually, right, are at the lows, which is still kind of bearish, even though we went down, gapped down, and now pushed back up, we're still at these lows. So let's look at the Nasdaq futures. All right. We can just see this mess. It's just, this area here. Let's see here. Like this area. It's pretty much been a this balanced area. Okay. We're in it still. So this is futures. Now you can see that's last week's lows. Prices here. See what I mean? Now you did hit that 9 EMA daily, and now you're selling, but it's just not easy. You went almost to the middle of this balance range again. So what's gonna happen? Who knows? It's just a balance area. Okay. Now let's go to that bond market. Let's see what we're doing here. So it looks like we're trending lower here, but we're still just caught in this range. Okay, this is your triple-headed monster. We're still just caught in this range. So there's not much to see here, even though it's trending lower. All right, let's look at the dollar. The dollar, here we go. Finally, let's look at this range here. Finally, you were downtrending, right? And finally, you popped up. This is what I was expecting to see eventually. All right. Now, I don't know where this is going to go, but this is a key resistance area. You can see it right there, that 99.37. That resistance right here. Look how much resistance is there. It just got stopped there, so it needs to really take that out and hold it to see any kind of life there. Okay, let's look at the VIX. Oop. All right, there's our VIX. And we've been in this range here, spiked up, and then boom, spiked up again, and this is nice volatility. So 16 VIX is a 1% expected move plus or minus in the S&P 500. So we're at a 21. Expect a good, decent ranges today. Okay, expect decent ranges today. Volume now is pretty good, and now we're rolled over. We're completely rolled over to the new contract. You're not going to get any squirrely. Could tell from the price action last week with the futures rolling over. It's always a little weird. So now we won't have that, and now we're basically in this new contract. Okay, and let's move on to the hourly charts. I don't know how. Give me 1 second here, and I'll bring that up for you guys. What a wild, wild market this has been of late. All right, so let's look at our hourly charts here. Let me just get my marker out. All right, so this is the ES. All right, so craziness. And what we did on Friday was here, and then boom, we opened up here on Sunday, pushed down into this demand zone, ripped up, pulled back, and now we're here. Okay, that's what's been going on. In the grand scheme, it's just this range, right? This is what we've been doing. Now there's a little bit of a downtrend here, right here, but like I wouldn't rely too much on that. Okay, and this has basically been the support around 59.60. This has been hit here and actually just finally hit here. So yeah, that's what's going on. Now here's the key: the big levels, 60, 65. This is what I wanted to show you guys. Okay, and let's make this chart naked so you can just see the volume profiles here. Okay, this is the most traded price of the rolling year in this year, 60, 65. You can see this big spike here. Okay, notice on Friday we failed to accept there, and then what happened? Boom, right? And then we opened lower. This is a big line in the sand, 60, 65. Okay, in order for the market to go higher, it needs to accept price above it to go higher. If it can't and fails again, this could finally break these lows. Okay, so then there's some more, I don't know, interim is the right word, but you can notice also the most traded price of the month is here. Most traded price of the week is here, and also just caused resistance. So basically this area, as long as we stay under here, it's bearish. Okay, that's how I look at it, the structure with the most traded prices. All right, so that's your ES. Now let's move over to the NASDAQ. Okay, similar, range here, right? But here's what we have going in the NASDAQ. Okay, I'm gonna again do the same thing, hide a lot of this stuff, just so we can clean it up and just look at the price action here. All right, so what did we do? 21650 is the most traded price of the rolling year. Look where that acted as support, right on this candle. And on the other side, you have 220, which is the most traded price of this year. Okay, right there. The market failed to find acceptance over that on Friday and came back down, right? So again, 220, 216.50 is the playground for the NASDAQ. Okay, notice you keep going from here to here to here to here. That's the ping pong that's going on right now. Those are the levels that I'm watching and that are significant. Okay, if I put back my levels on here, you can see most traded price of this year, and then you have the most traded price of the week and the month up here. So this area, again, as long as price stays below this area, that is bearish. Okay, and you really, this is the most traded price of the rolling year. That's going to be tough to cut through. As you've seen, we've come in here once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and we've bounced. Okay, you're just not getting any follow through. So that's your hourly charts. We're going to move on now to the most traded price. I'm sorry, to the NinjaTrader workspace that I have my analysis for the market profile, volume profile. Here we are. Alrighty. Alright. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the profile, composite profile for the rolling week. And you can see this is the profile. Now this profile has a very bullish imbalance to it. Okay, you can see it's imbalanced to the upside. A normal profile would have this excess. Okay, and you can clearly see a level here around 60, let's call it 60, 70. That is a big time resistance level. Okay, 60, 65 is the most traded price of this year, and that's just that general area. Okay, so the bullish imbalance. Now right now this profile looks like it wants to push to the upside based on the profile right here. Okay, here's value area right here that will highlight, and the price is in value. So we're back into value. We were down here. Okay, so right off the bat, we have a supply zone right here, and that is a big level. That encompasses the most traded price of the month, the most traded price of this year. Okay, 60.65, and that's 60.70. That's 60.70. Okay, now again, whenever you're in some type of balance, right? Every time we've come up here, a couple times here, look, we were up here once, came up here again, pushed down, came up here again, failed, came up here again, failed, and now we came down to the bottom. And every time we come to the bottom, we get bought. So this becomes very susceptible to get broken. That's 60.70. Because now we came lower, and now all shorts from here, if they have to cover, it's going to propel this market higher. I'm not saying we break out. I'm just saying we might break it. Okay. Now also, we have to note this. Most traded price of the week here lines up with the overnight highs. Okay, that's an important level. Month-to-day anchored VWAPs here as well. Okay. We do have a demand zone right here that we bounced out of. That also includes the most traded price of Friday right here. We have some single prints from the open. Okay. And this demand zone here. So this 59, what is that? 59, call it 59.60. Got a demand zone right here. Okay. Just trying to see other levels here to note. I think we're pretty good. Okay. And let's see if the inventory. Okay, so inventory here, that's the open. That's the only short activity to this much long. We're pretty much 95% net long, and we're at the top, upper third of the session. You could expect maybe a correction here off the bat, some longs taking profit. Okay, now I'm going to pay attention to this line right here. That's the week to date VWAP. That means from the Sunday open, this is the VWAP. Okay, so I'm going to pay attention to that. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to get right into scenarios here. Right into scenarios. We're going to start with the bullish scenario here. Okay, price is right here. All right, let me do this. You can see here the price action of the overnight. All right, so price is here. So I already just said we're 95% net long, right? We came into this area right here, the supply right here, okay, with the most shorter price of the week. So we came up here, and you have almost a poor high up here, but it doesn't show it. All right, so you pulled back into this demand and anchor view up, and now you're getting love. Now, let's just say if we come back in here, pull back in here again, and then look to break that 60.39 here. Okay. Once you break that, you're going to go into the most traded price of this year and this month. That's where that big 60.70 level is. That's been resistant multiple times. Okay. I don't know if we break it, but something's got to happen the next time we come up here, and we could break it and possibly test the 61.16 level. Okay. This 61.09 is last week's highs. Last week's highs. 59.69.50 right there is last week's lows. Okay, so that's something that I would like, because in this case, like I said, you have to understand the balance, right? I just said it. If all these shorts have gotten paid and you drop down here, and now we ripped up and we're pulling back, now whoever's short here still holding on, they're going to have to cover, and that can propel the market. Okay, so this is kind of like a really nice setup. Okay, now price is right here. Okay, now if we don't get that pullback, which this is something I wouldn't love, but it could happen, because in this area is a chop zone. So if we came in here, oops, sorry. If we came in here, I'm not going to love to be in here, but you could hold here and try to push up. I'm not a fan of that as much. The other way that could happen, you could lose this demand zone and come all the way back into this demand. If we did this, the market would be weak. There's a big demand zone here, but I'm not crazy about it long, but we could bounce out of here. Like I said, I only got this one that I have my eye on that I really like. Okay, things can change how the market internals are. Okay, let's go with the bearish side, because right now bears are in control. Okay, you have a supply zone right there. Okay, so like I said, we're coming up from here. If the price moves up into here, cannot find acceptance into this area and rejects, if you get a lower high, right, you're going to try to take out all these buyers here, this demand zone. If you do, you have single prints here. You could find yourself breaking last week's lows and find yourself moving into this demand zone. Okay, now if price happens to find itself at this 60-70 level again in this supply zone, okay, and you can't find acceptance over it, let's say you try to make a move and you fail and reject, that's also a sign of a nice short. Okay, that's really what I'd be interested in right now. Okay, moving on to the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ should be similar. Let's see here. All right. Now the NASDAQ is not similar. Okay, and I'll show you why. Doesn't have that bullish imbalance to it. So let's look at the profile. Notice you have excess at the top value area. So that's kind of very balanced. You see the ES has that like shelf like this. That's that 60/70, right? The difference is because this level was broken, right? In the ES, it really wasn't. So that's a pretty significant difference. Okay. Now we know we have big levels here to talk about. We do have the 2213, let's call it 36 level here. You got supply zone here, right here. And encompasses the most traded price of the week and the month. So that's a pretty big level. All right. It's a pretty big level. What else do we have here? So price is right here. Okay, we're right at the close. Friday's close. Okay, right there. We also are not as frothy as the ES. ES was like 95% net long. This is more or less like 80% net long. Okay, you can see we opened here. We did have some short activity. Now, we do have a demand zone down here that we came into, right? And now got bought. We do have the most traded price of the rolling year, 21650 here. That's been support multiple times. Okay. We do have a supply zone that lines up with the overnight highs and this demand zone as well. Okay. Now, if you look at this on the NASDAQ, you're in the middle of balance. Okay. Look at the profile and look where price is. Right in the middle. Okay. Not the best location you want to be in. All right. So you want to see movement away from that. Okay. Especially too, you're right at the close, Friday's close. So, all right, let's see what we're going to do here. Let's get into scenarios. And we're going to start with the bull side. And what I'm going to look for here is prices here, right? So there is a supply right here. So I wouldn't mind coming in here. You get the supply. You drop back. You have the week to day VWAP right there. Into this demand, the most traded price of the overnight right now. Let's see if you find support there. Some lower highs to try to start to move up. This is going to be hard to push through. But if you do, you're going to test this area right here. This could be rejected again, but if it's not, you can break the 22130 and try to test the last week's highs. 222. That's 2224. Okay, this is last week's lows. That's last week's range. Okay. There's not much I like as a long other than that, if I'm being honest. Okay. Like I said, we could push back into this area, and like I said, if we're down here, we're probably pretty weak. Yes, can we bounce? We could, but I'm not a big fan of it. Okay. All right. So go to the bear side here. Okay. Price is here. All right. So we definitely can come into this supply, try to move up, hit that most traded price of the year, fail, come back in here, then you can really start working off the most traded price of the overnight right here. And let's open this up so we can see the price action. Okay. All right, you can really test this demand and this support. And this is the big level, 21650. If you crack that and you break that, this is going to go right down to here, down at least to 214. Okay, this is just a monster level, 21650 on the Nasdaq. Okay, if we push up, let's say, okay, pretty quickly and get into this supply zone again. Let's say we push up, but then reject, fall right through it. Same thing could happen, fall down. Okay, it's just have to see. This is not easy. All right, when you're in the middle of this balance area, it just becomes choppy. So you really have to pick your spots in this market, and the volatility's up. So we just have to see. But that is my scenarios. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. All right, you can smash that like button for me. That'd be much appreciated. Okay, as always, you can join me every day. Do this every morning. Give you the market story, the leaders, the laggards, the market news, the economic calendar, so forth. I gave you daily chart analysis, 1 hour chart analysis. Then I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios that I'm going to be looking at today in the Nasdaq and the ES futures. Okay, hopefully everybody can follow our plan. Everything looks pretty okay. I'm not ecstatic about anything, but you have to wait until the market opens up. Okay, you have to wait until the market opens up. Okay, now once that market opens, okay, I will be in my Discord giving live commentary. Okay, if anybody wants to join my Discord, that's called Confluence Trading, go to my YouTube homepage and sign up. Okay, and then interact with me. I love answering questions about the markets, but I will give you my insight on the markets. Okay, just to give you an example of, like, what I say in there. Give me a sec here. Live market updates. This is just an example of Friday morning. Okay, I'll show you this right here. So you can see on 9:44 a.m. internals are strengthening, ticks are nice and green. However, the leader is XLU, XLP, and XLF. That's utility, staples, and financials. Laggards, semiconductors, and healthcare. Very odd. We are major levels, which should chop. NQ broke some key levels. We are still in supply in both NQ and ES. Tricky here. Okay, you can see I give you the live. These are all from the open. This is not from the close. This is what is driving markets. I give you that. I give you the ticks, the NYSE and the Nasdaq, and I give you the number one thing I can give you is those internals. Okay, and what's driving markets. Okay, now next at 10:25 a.m. I said internals are weakening. Semis is now the lagging sector. Nvidia is selling off. Amazon as well. Caution. Caution. Okay, so you can see internals are starting to turn red. You can see that the lagging sectors is semiconductors. Okay, then at 10:40, internals are weak here. The keys that I explained this earlier. The key that the market cap is weaker than the equal weight. This is bearish for right now. Also, semiconductors and XLK has hit big resistance levels. Attached is the daily chart of QQQ SPY. You can see we bounced off last month's highs and last week's lows in SPY. I'm leaning short on pullbacks. Need more data. Okay, so here you can see the internals. Market cap weaker than the equal weight, right? You heard me say, look at the weakness here. Semis are the laggard. Okay, semis are the laggard. And here's those daily charts that I posted. That's the crucial levels we were at. Okay. Then finally, I just gave you anchored VWAPs. I said these buyers from the lows, those are the anchored VWAPs, are now underwater. Right? And then I short it and I got out of break even. Even though I had a nice excursion, I probably could have took some off. But anyway, that's the Discord. That's the stuff I provide you. Again, I'll just put it up again. That's Confluence Trading. That's my Discord. Go to my YouTube homepage and join the community. All right, everybody. Everybody have a great day. If you see me in Discord, I'll see you in Discord. If not,